Well, yesterday, Dan, was a day that we had talked about a couple weeks ago. Disney and the NFL released their collab that officially went
Yeah.
live.
Yep.
My wife and I did a reaction video. You can find that on my Twitter and all that. But we, I don't know if you what you saw of it. Did you see Pittsburgh
Grace quizzed me on every single team, so we went back and forth.
and looked at them all?
And yeah, I think I guessed like 3 of the 30 correctly. There were
So
some left field decisions
there
on that
was. I
thing.
think the Steelers were one of them. Your Steelers got the
Yeah,
heat
but it
from.
kind of makes sense. I get it. But I wasn't super familiar with Pete, to be honest with you. There's a lot of Disney I need to brush
Yeah.
up
Well,
on, but
he's the OG bad guy from
yeah,
Steamboat Willie. And then he kind of became Goofy's like buddy neighbor
art,
bad guy and an arch
yeah.
nemesis and all those, and then he was in the Goofy movie and all that.
Wow.
Um
Oh, shoot, you cut out again. Your mic, it failed us. The mic let go. No, my pick for the Steelers was the Iron Giant because I thought that would just make sense with the steel factories and, the uh, rich blue collar history of the city. Obviously, that made the most sense. But Pete's classic nature, yeah, I got you now. I think
it's
you started to come through.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with my mic and I don't think it's my mic because I think it works on my other laptop. I think it's my old MacBook is giving out on me.
Ah, okay. Well, you
Well,
sound good.
okay, cool. Yeah, but the Bears had blue, so I got that one. I already ordered
Yeah,
the
yeah.
shirt. It looks a great design. There's a couple really good ones. Check it out if you haven't already. We
The
don't need.
Ravens Maleficent, I called
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And that was a perfect choice. And I'm so jealous that the Ravens have such cool branding. Like
Yeah.
they really do. Like their
There's
whole aura and color scheme and everything is
yeah.
just really cool.
There's a couple that were perfect. Like the Lions got Simba, and it's a great design. There was the Millennium Falcon with the Falcons. I
Yes.
think is actually pretty darn cool.
I actually guessed that one. I was kind of proud of myself because
Yeah,
that was like off the cuff, just like instantly.
if you watch my wife and I did these videos, I post them on my Twitter. But if you watch any of them, we did a prediction one, and we had like a family pool, and I won it because I got the most right.
Okay,
The one
nice.
I was most proud of was I picked Pepita for the Jaguars, which is a great.
Dang.
It's from Coco, the spirit animal, the Alabrije.
That's a
Um,
pull right there. I
it
mean,
was a
I'm
pull.
surprised you
Well,
got that. That was good.
Coco is one of my. It's quickly become one of my top. It's definitely top 10 Pixar. Like it could be top 10 Disney movies. It's
Nice. You're gone. You're gone. You're gone. It's
didn't even touch it.
if oh,
I
you're back again. So people need to this is a great plug to watch the YouTube stream so you can
I
actually see Mark's reaction in
now
real
I think
time
it's
when
I think it's
his
like
mic
my
gives
my
out.
mute button. All right. Well, I'm just gonna keep. Let's jump into it, and you let me know if I keep going in and out.
For sure. Yeah.
Son of a
Yeah,
biscuit.
no, we're it's all good. We are talking NFC AFC West today. If you missed the last couple of weeks, we covered the East divisions and South divisions. We're on the West today. Gonna cover the North next week. And then the Tuesday before the season kicks off, we will give our full predictions. That includes season records as well as seeding for the 2026-2027 NFL playoffs. So be sure to tune in to the others if you missed it. We're glad you're here. I'm going to talk the West, and we've got quite a few teams that are vying not just for their division here, but for a deep run in the playoffs and a couple that are returning from some great seasons. So excited to dive into the West. I know we're talking North next week. I don't want to get too much into it now,
Yeah.
obviously, but I can't help it with the recency of the news. The fact that the Browns are continuing to be a laughing stock and can't get out of their own way, even with a new head coach who had a perfect opportunity to be
I
like,
did.
I'm naming
Good.
Shadur Sanders the starting quarterback. We are officially moving on from the Deshaun Watson fiasco, especially after a day after Deshaun basically mailed it in and let it all hang out and was just like the fans like screw you. These fans like don't appreciate me. They're disrespectful. Blah blah blah. We could talk about how tone deaf his response was,
Oh,
but the fact that he said that, it made it seem like a self-sabotage, like he was ready to just to be done. And then the next day they go ahead and they name him the starting quarterback. I just thought that was hilarious. I didn't know if you had any initial reaction to that news. Obviously, we're talking Browns next week, but um, it was worthwhile to mention at least before we dive in
my
today.
initial reaction was more like when Colin Coward does where Colin was right, where Colin was wrong. And I was like, where Mark was wrong. Because I think if you remember when he retore his Achilles for the second time, and he didn't, so he missed like 2 straight years of football. I had said we're finally done with Deshaun Watson,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I guess I was wrong. We'll see. I mean,
I
we
mean,
can talk
it's not like if he played well this preseason, even you could say like, oh, there's like a
yeah,
glimmer of hope. He's played poorly. He's like
played.
nothing has been
It's bad.
good about any of this.
It's got to be frustrating for Browns fans, and
Yeah.
my guess is we will see a lot of Shador Sanders this year.
Oh yeah. I mean, the first sign of failure, they'll put Shadur in. It just doesn't just put him in then. Like enough. You've done this yo-yo dance
Yeah,
plenty of times already. Like it doesn't seem worthwhile, but that's for another day. We are here to talk about the West. We've typically started with the NFC. I'd like to pivot with the AFC if you don't mind, Mark,
yeah,
because
that's fine.
the AFC West is a fun one, and and there's a lot of volatility in this particular division
My back.
with teams like the Chargers, who we've anticipated being a great team for so long, and they keep shit in the bed when it comes time for the playoffs. Uh, and then you have the 14-3 Denver Broncos who came soaring in. The 6-win Kansas City Chiefs. This is a
Okay,
weird year
if you,
for the
I'm
AFC West
hold
for
on,
sure.
wait a minute.
Am I
It's my mic, and
super delayed for you now? Is this things falling apart? Because I can hear you.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I could absolutely hear you.
I can no longer hear you.
Oh man, this is brutal.
I'm
This is
gonna
brutal. We can hear Mark now, folks.
come back in. I'll even come back in.
Mark is going to leave the live stream and come back in. This is the problem with live TV, folks. I've lived it. Mark's done the live radio for quite some time. He did live TV as well. This is the nature of it. But
I can
we're
hear
gonna
you.
make it work.
I can hear
All
you.
right, he's got me. He's
I
got
can
me. I
hear
was
you. You
saying
hear
this
me?
is
We're just gonna roll.
we're gonna roll. We're gonna roll. We're gonna keep talking.
You get it started, and I'll follow.
Yeah, I was gonna start in the AFC West, but particularly the Denver Broncos, who had quite a wild 14-3 season, finishing first in the division, taking the number one overall seed, beating Buffalo, and then of course losing to New England en route to a an exit there from the playoffs. That close to a Super Bowl championship or a Super Bowl appearance, I should say, for the Denver Broncos. A weird year because especially with Bo Nix, there was a lot of hype around him taking the next step to being a great franchise quarterback for the team. And despite their 14-3 record, I think you and I both were like, yeah, it was kind of a underwhelming year from Bo Nix, but the defense was just so freaking ridiculously good that it kept them in every single game. They were able to hold teams to in the teens or even less than 10 points several times. So that's kind of what kept them afloat. They have this great year. Then they go out and get Jalen Waddle to fortify the receiving core. They bring in Davis Webb as the offensive coordinator. Now, how much of a stamp is he going to have on this offense versus Sean Payton? We'll see. That's yet to be seen. But it's kind of signals a team that feels that they are one piece away from taking a shot at the Lombardi mark, given that they were so close last year.
They literally they were one Bo Nix foot ankle injury away from being having a chance for the Lombardi. I think one of the
Yeah, I
things that
forgot
you
the Stidham experience,
yeah,
there that gave them 7
they
points, I think it was.
they were at home, and rolling, and I think Broncos fans, they gotta feel like they had something stolen from them last year with that freak injury. To me, obviously, when you look at Denver, Nix and Peyton is the headline. Like, can this relationship not just maintain, because it's a solid relationship. It played well. Like, they gave him more weapons, but can it grow? Can it take a new step forward? If it can, then there's no reason why Denver shouldn't be right back in the mix of things, in the final teams of the AFC. I love their weapons. Dobbins and Harvey in the backfield, Sutton, Waddle, Pat Bryant, Troy Franklin, Evan Ingram. I mean, a bevy of weapons. Aging offensive tackles with McGlinchey and what's his name, Bowles, or but
Yeah.
younger in with cute Quinn Miners. I think it's a good offensive line, really good offensive line. The age of McGlinchey and Bowles scare me a little bit. Benito, Sertan, Hufunga. This defense is very good. The key for me for Denver will be there's a very unique stretch, week 1 um, through 6, and and they have to find a way to survive the stretch 1 through 6, because after their week 10 bye, which is a great time to have a bye, they get the Raiders twice, the Jets, and Miami. So it feels like 4
Mm,
winnable games in the second
yeah.
half of the season, but you cannot, Dan, 1 through 6 is brutal. It's at KC, against the Jags, against the Rams, at the Niners, at the Chargers, home against Seattle. That's 1 through 6.
So and just 1 division game in that
I know,
too.
and so it's
They're
a
yeah, yikes.
you got Seattle, you have the Niners, you have the Rams, you have the Jags, and then you have the KC and the Chargers in your division. That's just weeks 1 through 6. If Denver can find a way to be 3-3 after week 6, this team has a real chance to make the playoffs again, just because they have winnable games in the second half of the season.
Yeah, they returned most of their defense, so there's not a huge issue. I mean, they lost Owe and Deshaun Hand. Those Owe was probably the biggest loss there, but you got to figure. Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking about the Chargers, getting ahead of myself.
Oh yeah,
Um, no, their biggest loss was Franklin Myers on the D line and Dre Greenlaw. But they keep the core of that defense intact, and so I feel like that is going to be a stabilizing force still. So carrying over from last year, that beginning stretch is pretty rough. So they are gonna have to lean pretty heavily, I would think, on the defense there. But I do also think, Cortland Sutton had a great year last year, and he was clearly a reliable outlet for Bo Nix. But he's not the game breaker type of player, right? He's a super reliable and is good for 5 catches, 60 yards every game, and can make really tough catches. I think the addition of Jalen Waddle, and then of course you mentioned now they got another year with that running tandem with Harvey and Dobbins.
yep,
This could open up this offense a lot more. It's all on Bo Nix to actually do it. So I think Jalen Waddle is primed to have a really big year, and that's going to give this offense kind of another explosive element that they were missing, I
yep.
think, last year. And so that's going to be an important step for them as they go toe to toe with all the others in the division. All right, let's move on to the LA Chargers. I mentioned the loss of Odafe Owe and Deshaun Hand, but they didn't really lose much at all, Mark. They bring a lot of the returning players back. They get Mike McDaniel to come in and coach up this offense, which is probably it was one of the biggest coaching additions in the NFL, I would say. And we saw Justin Herbert, have a pretty solid season, but then again, this team faltered when it mattered most. They go out and get David Njoku. They've got Omarion Hampton. Um, they fortified their offensive line with some additions there, Biotish and Strange. So yeah, I thought they've improved their team
The pro
considerably,
the
and they
problem is
still have Herbert.
Yeah, the problem is Biotish is now out for the year, and so
Oh,
he
I
he
missed
just
that.
got injured last week, and he's out for the
Okay,
year,
I
and
missed
so,
that. Well, shoot,
they
that's
moved their
tough.
they moved their rookie guard, I can't think of his name, Rocker, or, they moved him to center. Listen, here's my biggest question about the Chargers offensively. Adding McDaniels and having Harbaugh and Herbert is should be all you need, right? Hampton is a nice back. I like him a lot. But when you look at then beyond that, it's McConkey, Quentin Johnson, David Njoku. Like it's in an AFC West where
I don't
you,
think that's that bad.
I
I
mean,
mean, Johnston has had a very up and
weird
down
career.
career so
And if
far.
McConkey's your number one wideout, it just feels like maybe someone's going to step up, right? Maybe someone who's closer to Chargers camp goes, no, they got this kid in the fourth round, and they like him a lot, and he's going to pop. I don't know. It feels like it's going to be a lot on Justin Herbert and the run game, but that's kind of what
But
Harbaugh wants to do, anyways.
Alton Slater are back, and that's
Yes.
probably the biggest thing,
So
right, for this team?
huge, right? You know,
Yeah.
and if you're going to have injuries to your offensive line, I hate to say it, but the interior, it's better to have injuries there than it is at the tackles. You can survive that a little bit more.
There's more
There's just
swing guys there
the
and less,
tackles who are playing on the
risk.
islands having to deal with the elite.
We lost you again, buddy. That's okay. We're great at remediating these issues now because this is,
Yeah, right.
been a quick fix.
I,
Yeah, you're back.
I'll just say defensively wise, Perriman, Mack, Derwin James, Tuilopo. Um, I expect them to be very good still defensively, even though they lost Jesse Minter. You know, he's now the head coach of the Ravens.
Yeah.
But I will say, schedule wise for the Chargers, thing that stands out to me is week 3 through 10. In the bulk of the season, they have week 7 bye, so kind of an early bye. Don't love that, but if you look at that, this this little stretch: Buffalo, Seattle, Denver, KC, and then a bye.
Yeah.
And then after the bye, it's Rams, Houston, Baltimore. So, I mean, it's the bulk of the season
Is
there for
that
the
the
Chargers.
worst six-game stretch in the
It's
league? It's
ins-
gotta be.
it's really tough. Now they get the bye in the middle, but
Yeah.
can you find a way, honestly, to go 2-2 before the bye and 2-2 after the bye? If the Chargers win 4 of those games and lose 4 of those games, especially if they can find ways to win the divisional ones in that matchup, they should be okay. Like they should be okay. But anyone who's thinking I'm going to stack wins for the Chargers, that schedule is a brutal, brutal run. Especially when you look at how are you going to score points with those weapons versus Seattle, versus Houston, versus Denver, and then you know obviously Buffalo's going to put up a bunch of points. And how do you keep pace with them? I'm after looking through the schedule, it worried me a little bit about the Chargers. Got to be honest.
Yeah, that is concerning. That is a very difficult stretch, but again, it's hard to say this because there is still a bottom. I mean, this team, is coming off of a 11-6 season, so certainly
Yeah,
a lot of room for error, but, in many ways, in terms of performance, it feels like they only have up to go from there. They get Mike McDaniel, they have another, year with the running game. O'Marion Hampton, is a rising
yeah,
star, and they get Alton Slater back. If their offensive line can stay relatively healthy, that Biotish injury does hurt. Then they should be in store for another close to 11-6 campaign
for sure.
and be able to compete with Denver and Kansas City for the top spot in this division. Speaking of Kansas City, we'll go there next. 6-11 year, first losing season under the Patrick Mahomes era. Obviously, he's coming from a ACL, LCL injury and is almost certainly going to be ready for week 1. They lose 2 of their top corners. But they get some corners in return. Eric Bieniemy returns to help run the offense with Andy Reid, and of course, their biggest addition coming in the form of Kenneth Walker, and so I think that's going to be the biggest aid to Patrick Mahomes's injury rehab than anything else. He, for the first time in several years, may finally have a running game that can help sustain
Yeah,
this team. This offense has gone through several iterations, as we've seen in the Andy Reid and Mahomes era. They've gone from crazy explosive to being much more conservative and leaning on the dink and dunk over the middle with Travis Kelsey to attempting a hardcore run game that hasn't worked out as much. And then obviously last year with the wheels falling off of the injury. I think they're going to have a balanced approach this year. The defense actually is kind of a bigger question mark for myself now that they've had all of these years of great defense, but aging defense. How is that going to stack up as the rest of their division is growing in offensive prowess? Obviously, you got to trust, the mind of their defensive coordinator to get that done. He's been around the block a time or two, but this is uh this is still a tall order. I'm not expecting a massive return for the Chiefs. They'll return to form. They'll have a winning season, I believe. But I mean, are you taking this team to like automatically come back and win the division?
I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure yet. I have to go through. I have to go through it game by game. But I like where the Chiefs are at, mainly because they got the band back together. You mentioned it. You got Spags, Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator, and they go back to Eric Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator, who, by all accounts, should have never really left. He kind of
Yeah.
forced his way out to try to get a head coaching job, and it never really happened for him. And I think if you look at the two versions of the Chiefs so far, and they both won Super Bowls, but if you look at the version that we think of in our mind as the explosive, unstoppable Chiefs, it's the Eric Bieniemy Chiefs. It's not the Matt Nagy Chiefs. And I guess I know people will say, well, it's all Andy Reid. The influence of those guys he trusts, I think, right. Like and I know it's a personnel thing. Listen, Rasheed Rice, Xavier Worthy, Travis Kelsey, Noah Gray, Kenneth Walker, all of those guys playing and healthy. That's a good enough stable of weapons for Patrick Mahomes. Offensive line, obviously, really solid inside with Creed Humphrey, and Trey Smith. On the outside, it's all about can Josh Simmons finally stay healthy? Third year, 2 injuries the first 2 years. Can he put together a season of health? That's going to be huge. On the defense, I'll just say this: the names are still there, right? You see Snead, you see Chris Jones, Karlaftis, and then Mansour Delane, the rookie that they take to bring in to fill the corner spot because they trade McDuffie to the Rams. I think they're still there. I still think the Chiefs. I think it's going to be hard to judge before we see them. What do the Chiefs look like when they're kind of written off, when they have to kind of pick themselves back up? They're not the big bad Chiefs anymore. They have officially been knocked down. How do
Yeah.
they respond? I think it's going to be hard for us to judge until we see it. Obviously, the Eric Bieniemy thing, I was really excited about. We know because of my frustration with Matt Nagy. The thing that is obviously a concern is he hasn't been with the team a lot because of this whole his son shooting his wife incident that happened a couple weeks ago, which is just wild. So, could the Chiefs start slow and then come into form? I don't doubt it. I will say, as far as the schedule goes for the Chiefs, their key stretch is weeks 12 through 17. It will determine if they win that division and where they are in the seeding at the end of the year. At Buffalo, at the Rams, at Cincy, versus New England, versus the Niners, at the Chargers. That's weeks 12 through
A
17.
lot of road trips right
Wow. And I mean, you're talking about heavy hitters in the AFC, New England, Chargers, Cincy, Buffalo, teams that we expect to be competing for their division, maybe competing for the 1 or 2 seed. And there you're going to have the Chiefs going to be right there with it. And their NFC opponents in between are the Rams and the Niners. I will say, though, they do have winnable games, though. They have 2 against the Raiders. They have a Jets game. They have a Miami game. They have an Indy game. They have Arizona. They have Atlanta. There's a lot of winnable games to the Chiefs' schedule because they missed the playoffs. Getting that easier schedule, you see some of those names on there. I think the Chiefs will definitely find a way to 10 wins. I don't know what that's going to mean as far as the standings go, but I feel confident. Like this feels like a 10-win team.
Yeah, I agree. I do feel that more is going to be required to win this division, which is why I'm also reluctant to name them division champs. So we'll see what the predictions end up coming out as, but I don't feel great about any one team in this division because I could see regression coming for Denver potentially. It shouldn't, but I could see it coming because I could, I'm still not sold on Bo Nix, and maybe we see some
Yeah.
sort of CJ Stroud come to earth type of season with him. The Chargers just haven't proven it yet. So that kind of leaves us in a no man's land um, with this division. Let's move on to the Vegas Raiders, who kind of did a complete overhaul of their team. They get new coaching staff entirely, new quarterback room. They get the number one pick, Fernando Mendoza. They go out and get a lot of several additions and veterans like N'Kobe Dean and Quay Walker, Taron Johnson, Kwity Paye. They have a great draft by all accounts, and a stacked draft at that. So they've got a lot of pieces to work with. They're almost kind of reminding me a little bit of the Atlanta Falcons in that there's a lot of names now
Yeah.
on this team. We know Brock Bowers, we know Ashton Genty. We'll see how Fernando Mendoza, comes into play, and some other guys on there that have name recognition. Max Crosby still on the roster here, so there's some dudes. It's whether or not they can actually put it together as one cohesive piece and win football games.
Yeah.
So that's something the Atlanta Falcons haven't done much of as of late, and that's something the Raiders haven't done either. But the Raiders think that they've got their franchise quarterback. I imagine we'll see Mendoza rolled out there very, very quickly in the early going of the season. They just don't. They have like no wide receivers. I mean, Jalen Naylor, is he like their number one? I have no
Yeah.
idea.
Naylor, Trey Tucker. Now they have
Yeah,
two good tight ends though, so they're going with
they
the
do.
Michael Mayer and with the Brock Bowers tight end
Yeah.
play.
Clint
Obviously,
Kubiak's gonna have to
Genty
get
is
creative.
Genty rolled his ankle, but it looks like he's okay. He might miss week one or be limited. Um, Linderbaum at center is another one. You think of that addition for this team and
They
what it
paid
should.
him an
Um,
incredible amount of money.
Colton Miller at tackle. As you mentioned it, the thing that stood out to me as I was going through the Raiders and prep for this was obviously number one is like Mendoza versus Cousins. What do you do? When do you start it? It's the age-old question. Do you sit a guy? Do you play a guy? We've seen success for the guys who sit. We've seen success for the guys who play. We've seen disaster for the guys who sit. We've seen disasters for the guy who plays. It
Yeah.
feels like it's
It's
every
almost like there's no true
yeah.
formula
It
to
feels like every situation is just unique to what it is.
yeah.
I will say, I think in this scenario, I'm okay with them not starting Mendoza right away. I think it's one of those. It makes some sense just because roster wise, there's obviously holes. There's obviously holes for Caleb when he had to start for the Bears, but um, when you look at the difference between those prospects, Mendoza, to me, the more and more I see of him, it's like he's 50% Matt Ryan, 30% Kirk Cousins. And then there's like a 20% that kind of reminds you like he's big and strong. He's kind of got a cannon like a Justin Herbert type. And it's like that 30% potential is what you want to foster. A guy like a Caleb or a guy like, a first round pick like a Luck who just, seems so like effortless with their athleticism and who they are as an athlete. It makes it feel like you just start those guys and you see what happens.
Yeah.
I will say defensively, that's really what shocked me when you're looking at the names they added. Obviously, you have Crosby, but N'Kobe Dean, Quay Walker, Kwity Paye, as you say, all it was like, oh, they went out and they got some guys. I don't know if they're still good or how it's all going to work, but it's hey, you're making an effort.
Yeah.
I'll just say, not if you're going to bend Mendoza, if you're not going to start him, you're going to have to maybe stomach it because weeks 4 through 7 is a horrific stretch for the Raiders. And I don't want to see Mendoza get destroyed. They're against Kansas City, New England,
Mhm.
Buffalo, and the Rams in 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Those are 4 teams that should be vying for the Super Bowl in a
And
row
good defenses.
and good defenses. And you're comparing him then to Patrick Mahomes, Drake May, Josh Allen, and Matt Stafford. So it's like if you're going to sit him, let's maybe think that post week 7 Rams, if the team probably won't have many wins, and you just say, all right, we're going to roll with the kid the rest of the season. He'll get about a little more than half the season with his head coach Kubiak, and then you can kind of build off of it that way. You never know. Being patient is hard in the NFL, but that's a horrible stretch. Can you imagine him getting thrown in after week 3, and then you got
Yeah,
to
it's a
go
good
against
point.
those 4 in a row? That's tough.
you gotta do it mid-season then at that point. Either start the year with him or mid-season. Yeah, that's a tough
It's a
call. We'll
brutal
see how it
stretch.
actually plays out, but that's a tough one to throw someone into. All right, let's go to the NFC West. We'll start with the defending Super Bowl champion, Seattle Seahawks.
Love
A
it.
little bit of turnover here. Obviously, they lose their guy, Clint Kubiak. They lose Kenneth Walker, and they Tariq Woolen and Mafe, Kobe Bryant, some names for sure. But they did, fortify their running attack with that first round pick in Jadarian Price, who by all accounts is looking really, really solid. So maybe they have an explosive player there. And I would really say like no major additions other than, they extended Jackson Smith and Jigba. They re-signed Rashid Shaheed. So they're bringing some mainstays back, and another year finally for Sam Darnold gets a little bit of consistency here, other than having to once again change offensive systems. But we'll see how that all plays out. It's always tough to repeat as a champion. It's going to be doubly difficult for Seattle, given that the Super Bowl MVP is not on the team anymore, and they're in a division with the Los Angeles Rams and the San Francisco 49ers, who I
Yeah.
think as we get to it, will have some positive things to say about. So what's your overall consensus on how Seattle shakes up going into the year?
To me, there's only one question I have about Seattle. It's Clint Kubiak. How much of the success of that offense with the offensive player of the year, Jackson Smith and Jigba, with Sam Darnold leading the team to a Super Bowl title, was the Clint Kubiak effect, and how much of it was
Yeah.
an overall vibe fostered by McDonald, the head coach. Um, if it's because look at what happened that first year last year when Detroit lost Ben Johnson. They hired within, and it just felt like the magic was gone. Even though the culture was there, they were still a very solid football team. They weren't embarrassing by any means. Like Dan Campbell had built this foundation. It felt like the magic was gone.
Yeah.
So is that what happens to Seattle? My guess is it's not as dramatic as the difference with Detroit, but I feel like there could be some of that there. Now, here's where Seattle should feel good, though, right? You have a Super Bowl winning quarterback who is still playing with the giant chip on his shoulder, and people don't believe in him. You have a really good running back room with Charbonnet and Price, the second running back ticket, the kid out of Notre Dame. You have JSN, you have Shaheed, you have Cooper Cup, you have AJ Barter. That is a really incredible, solid stable of weapons, plus a strong O line with Cross and Zabel. And then defensively, I mean, Leonard Williams, Demarcus Lawrence, Witherspoon, Emin Worry, and then the genius that is McDonald. This is going to be a really, really good football team.
Yeah.
Will it have the same spark and magic? That is a really tough thing to tell. And we may not know until post Thanksgiving. You know what I mean? It may take them a while to get it, and then they might start rolling. Maybe the new offensive coordinator takes a couple weeks, and then all of a sudden they become a juggernaut at the end of the season. And when I look at Seattle's schedule, they have a chance to go off to a really good start. There are some winnable games, even for the defending Super Bowl champs. The schedule is workable. I will say though, I can't you don't want to rush the NFL season, but week 15 on for the Seattle Seahawks and the Rams. We'll talk about for the Rams too. They play each other in week 16 and week 18. And so for Seattle, it goes
Wow.
Philly, Rams, Carolina, Rams. Those are the last four games. So Philly, which I think is going to be competing for obviously the NFC East and maybe a one seed. So they're going to play them, and they're going to play the Rams twice, with that Carolina being the trap game stuck there in the middle, and that is at Carolina. So it's
Mm.
Rams at Carolina, Rams.
And that's
For
West Coast to East Coast.
Yes, and for Seattle, the last two are on the road, so it's home against the Rams. Then you got to go all the way to Carolina. Then you go to LA. That will be fascinating, especially because I think we both expect Seattle and the Rams to be in the playoffs. Maybe by week 18, it's one of those things again where it's like I kind of want to lose because I'm already locked up. I kind of want to win, and we might see them play each other 3 weeks and 3 times in 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's kind of like that's what kind of happened with the Bears and the Packers last year at the end of the year. They played each other 3 times in a month and a half. So we could be setting ourselves up for that for sure. But it's the magic question. Was Kubiak the magic, or was it the culture, the players, and Kubiak was just really good at fostering that? They could still have the magic and not win a Super Bowl. They could get to an NFC title game. They could get to
Absolutely. Yeah.
second round. And I don't think it would be a disappointment. Look at what happened to the Eagles when they tried to defend their Super Bowl title. It felt like they didn't have magic. There was a good team, but they kind of lost the magic. We'll see what happens with that. Or will they be like the Chiefs? And it's like, no, we're just a good roster and a good program, and we're gonna now be a force for 5 years.
Yeah, I have a hard time believing that they'll win 14 games again. But if they win 12 or 11, that's still a really good year. That's playoffs, and
Yeah.
anything can happen in the playoffs from there. So there's a lot of positivity in Seattle going into this year. It's not like a total hangover, at
Totally.
least not one that we anticipate from the 2025 season. All right, we'll go to their probably top nemesis here in the division, Los Angeles Rams, 12-5 last year. Beat Carolina in that thrilling opening round game. Then beat
The Bears.
I'm sorry. And then they obviously lost to Seattle. So big year for the Rams. This is another all-in year with Matthew Stafford at the helm, with Devontae Adams not getting any younger. They don't have Jared Verse anymore, but of course they go and get Myles Garrett, and we've got still talks about Aaron Donald potentially coming back for this team, which would just be absolutely ridiculous. They've got McDuffie and Watson from Kansas City,
and Poona Ford up in the middle. I mean, a front of Ford, Donald, and Myles Garrett. It's good. God.
Dear Lord. This is just, man, I don't know. Like, the Rams are just really, really good. It's like hard for me to like not put them in the top 3 of the conference conversation.
Yeah.
I guarantee that they're going to be in contention for the 1 seed when my predictions are all said and done. And I may very well, have them as my Super Bowl pick. This team, as long as Matthew Stafford stays healthy, has all of the promise.
Yeah. And you have McVay, and you have Kyron Williams and Blake Corum, a really solid backfield. Obviously, Nakua, Adams, Parkinson, Higbee, really good weapons, great red zone targets. We mentioned on defense all those guys: Ford, Garrett, McDuffie, maybe Donald. My question, positive thing I wanted to make sure I mentioned: both coordinators stayed. This is the first time in Matt Stafford's career with the Rams that he gets both his coordinators back. So that continuity for the Rams, I think, is going to also be really huge. Obviously, McVay kind of controls everything. I will say weeks 6 through 11, schedule-wise, is where they should really stack wins. Cardinals, Raiders, Chargers, Washington, Arizona. Kind of bookending Arizona there. The only tough game really being the Chargers, but that's at home. And the it's like they don't really have to travel. They're more popular in LA. I think that is a stretch where you say them go 5-0, and they kind of need it, because if you look at weeks 12 through 18, the NFL did the Rams dirty down the stretch because they know they're going to be good and they want the ratings. The last 6 weeks for the Rams is a murderer's row, including, as I mentioned, those last 3. It's for them, it's Seattle, Tampa, Seattle. So they have to do the East Coast thing too. And I would argue they have the maybe tougher opponent late in the season with Tampa than Carolina for Seattle. Now they do get Seattle at home, but and that final week, but you have to go to Tampa the week before. It's going to be really fun to watch. I'm high on the Rams, obviously, but I'm not ready to say they're going to win 14 plus games. I really don't think that's an easy thing to do with just how brutal the division and the schedule is.
They're in the best division in football, so it's really difficult for them to, have to project for 14 wins in any given season. I mean, we saw Seattle do it last year, obviously.
I think the North is the best. NFC North is the best division of football.
All right, yeah, there's definitely a conversation.
I think that's good. By the end of the year, it'll be pretty.
Arizona
solid.
Cardinals are ruining that curve there.
But I think San Francisco. I'm we're going to talk about it. I got a lot of questions about San Francisco.
Okay, well, let's go to San Francisco
Their
then. The
owner is in
49ers.
Ohio spending $140 for God knows what.
That is a wild story,
And have
and
you
I
seen
can't
his wife?
believe Kyle Shanahan had to respond to it. Like,
We
it's
have
just
drama with
crazy.
Kyle Shanahan. We don't know what happened really to him. We don't know
Yeah,
how
well, and
healthy
it's
he is.
supposedly it was the
And it was
accident was his fault,
and it was
right?
his fault. Now, I
He
don't
was
think he's going to go to jail or anything like that. It's not one of those type of things.
I think it was like a malfunction with autopilot on
He had
like a
his phone.
Tesla
I
or
think there was
something
a
like that.
phone admitting to like his phone
Yeah,
was either connected or then he was trying to, and he wasn't paying attention. And
yeah,
regardless, a lot of drama off season.
there is. Yeah,
Dan, this is a team that if you look at their roster as of this morning, McCaffrey, Evans, Christian Kirk, Kittle, all
a lot of injury
all
injury
may
history.
not play week one because they're trying to get healthy. Their healthiest guy right now as their weapon is Debo Samuel, who they brought off the street because they were desperate for another weapon.
Who
Because guess what?
also has an injury history, so
Because
we're
guess what
talking
happened?
about
Ricky Pearsall, there's supposed to be new up and coming star wide receiver who got shot and then had a healthy year and a half, is now injured, and he's missing the whole year. Obviously, Purdy and Shanahan, you have if the guys are all healthy with Trent Williams, the names are there, but the rest of the offensive line I have questions about besides Trent Williams, and then defensively, Odigizua, Bosa, Greenlaw, Warner, again, Diamador, Lenore, the names are there, but I don't know what is actually left in the tank. And they have to get another defensive coordinator. Salah is out. Like they have a rotating door of defensive coordinators. Um, Dan, it's just some questions. And then if you look at week 6 through 11, they need to win week 6 through 11. Washington, Atlanta, bye, Raiders, Dallas, Minnesota. If the Niners make the playoffs, it will be because they are healthy and they go on a 5-game win streak with that bye in the middle. Washington, Atlanta, bye, Raiders, Dallas, Minnesota. The rest of their schedule is brutal because, again, they'll have 2 Seattle games, 2 Rams games. They have to play a couple other people. That is their stretch, week 6 through 11. They've got to be healthy for that stretch to dial off wins against those teams, to stack enough wins to get to 10, 11 wins. I think they can do it, but I think it's going to be closer than you think just because I'm worried they get off to a slow start because
yeah.
of injuries and distraction.
Well, the slow start is definitely a worthy concern to point out. But my rebuttal to the makeup of the team having a lot of injury riddled players is that last year they dealt with quite a few injuries and they went 12-5. Now, granted, Christian McCaffrey was not in that group, so that's a
Yeah, he was healthy.
big piece to that puzzle. But I mean, if you allow yourself to dream and you get a full season out of Mike Evans and Christian McCaffrey, this team could be
Yeah.
really, really good. I mean, Nick Bosa wasn't how many games did he miss last year?
He
Almost the
missed like the
entire
whole season. Yeah.
So,
Dan, can I ask you this
yeah.
question? Besides, I think the Niners and the Texans are the 2 teams where if their quarterback misses significant time, I'm talking 3 or more games, I feel confident that it won't throw them off too much of a loop because I think Mac Jones played really well for them last year and in that system with those weapons. And then obviously, why can't I think of his name now? Long neck guy for Texans who helped the Bears get Caleb Williams. But he
Mike
went
Lennon,
no other long neck guy, but he went 3-0. Davis Mills went 3-0. He's been there his whole career. He went 3-0 with that great defense and those weapons. I can't think of another team that I'm like I immediately trust they could go 3-0 or more than those 2. And again, I think that speaks to the culture that both Houston and the 49ers have with great coaches, great talent, great systems, and there's really strong backup quarterback play. Most other teams, when I look at this, like if their quarterback is missing 3 or more games, it's like they're in real trouble.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, definitely. But there's only so many teams that can weather that type of storm, and it all boils down to the
And
head
maybe
coach.
the Rams can't. Ty Simpson looked good.
Yeah, Yeah, we'll see how that ends up turning out. Maybe Sean McVay is a little bit more enthusiastic about the
Yeah,
selection
maybe.
after the camp. But yeah,
Do
I
we
think
have
it's
to
a
talk
great
about the
point.
Cardinals? Do we have to? Do we?
I you know, I was debating whether or not it was even worth it. They had I think I heard somewhere earlier this year, and I'm trying to confirm it and I can't find it, that they had the lowest odds win total in
And like,
NFL history.
yes, I think it's like
Which was 2.5. I heard at some point. Now it's 3. Right
I,
now it's 3.5.
I've seen it, but there was a time a couple weeks ago where it was 2.5 was the over.
That's wild. And I didn't even think that this team really was that bad. Like, we're talking NFL
I,
history
I
betting
don't
on.
think. Here's the thing. I think if you put it up against like the 0-16 Lions team, I think this team could win. The problem is, Dan, again, the schedule. They got to win week 4 against the Giants. Because if they don't win week 4 against the Giants,
Just
I don't
one
think they're
game.
getting a win until like week 10 or 11 because they're just not going to be favored.
Yeah,
They,
yeah. Well, they
they
don't
have,
even know who their,
when you look at the 6 games
quarterback will
into,
be the whole season.
yeah, when you look at the 6 games in division, it's just that's a nightmare in and of itself. I will say though, if their offensive line can even just play solid football, like average football, LaFleur's run scheme, when you look at Algier and Love, and then Trey McBride, the best tight end in
Yeah.
football,
And,
Marvin
like, even
Harris,
if they have injuries, James Conner is still there.
yeah, and then you talk about Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, Kendrick Bourne, they just traded for. The,
Yeah. Also the Falcons.
yes,
They're the Falcons again. Yeah.
defensively, there's some issues. Josh Sweat just got off the pup, so he'll give them time this year. Buda Baker, but here's my promise: like if you look at it, they're just not going to be favored at all. Now they can maybe pull an upset or two, but with that schedule, it's going to be really ugly. I think early, and that sucks. It sucks for them because I do think there's when you look at Love and Marvin Harrison Jr. and as I mentioned,
Yeah,
Trey
they've got
McBride,
guys.
they got some guys who you want to root for, but man, it's just a nightmare of a schedule.
No, the quarterback situation's not great.
And
So, I mean,
here's the thing:
Jacoby
if
Brissett can get you in and out of stadiums, no question, but
yes,
it's
if
just
you're
whether or
if you're
not,
1-7 at week 8, you have no incentive to win more games. Like you have
No, no, yeah,
and,
they
and the issue for them will be the end of their schedule, like week 12, 13, 14. They have like the Jets and some winnable games. So there's going to be some really interesting, ugly matchups late in the season.
love it.
And I
Nice.
wonder if the
Just
NFL
to
did that
ruin fantasy football matchups for
yes,
people and
I
stuff,
wonder
yeah.
if the NFL did that on purpose because they're trying to give eyeballs to games that may have no meaning unless you're trying to get Arch
Yeah.
Manning. But you say to yourself, man, if Arch Manning ends up in Arizona with an offensive coach and Love and Algier and Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride or something
McBride,
like that, you say to
yeah,
yourself, like, man,
it's a
if
good spot.
they draft some offensive linemen the rest of that draft after that,
Dome
all
team.
you can see why there could be some enticing for teams to be losing at the end of the season.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Now, I think once we do our playoff predictions, we'll both probably find the Cardinals towards the basement, if not in the
I
absolute basement.
like a week and a half ago, I kind of went through and was picking some games and on that simulation that we do it on. I remember thinking to myself, like looking like halfway, like oh, like week 10, and I'm like the Cardinals have no wins, and I was like,
You
shit,
know,
I got to find them a win, and that's why I found the Giants. I'm like, Giants have got to be the sacrificial lamb for the Cardinals to get a win
there you go.
somewhere in there. It's brutal.
I love it. All right. Well, another great episode. We got one more of these divisional previews left before our official season predictions, and then
Of-
we're off and running. One more
of-
week here of preseason football. At that.
Officially, we'll have a new setup next week for the mic. I'm going to try something
Nice.
different.
I'm excited. All
It's
right.
maddening.
Very good. We've got something to look forward to. Well, we appreciate you all tuning in as always, and we'll see you here next week for the NFC AFC North preview. Very excited. Steelers, Bears, lot to get to. We'll see you then.